have always encountered ups and downs in time. And we, as a non-governmental organization, have decided to invite participants who have witnessed these ups and downs for at least 25 years. We have two ambassadors with us, and these ambassadors have directly dedicated their lives to this process. Many institutions in Turkey have put EU on the top of their agenda, and many activities have been undertaken. When we take a look at the history, we see that it has been exactly 21 years and 1 month after the Helsinki summit. Back then, we had some fireworks as part of the celebrations, but then again, we are still far away from full accession to the EU. That's a fact. On the other hand, during all these years, efforts have been spent and valuable integration steps have been taken, and relations are never to be pulled to the transactional and also special status. We are very close with the EU, so both parties have still not been able to determine what the level of the relationship should be. We seem to be on hold. Although through the digital means, we are coming together today as Turkey and EU, and from the business perspective, we know that keeping things on hold never bring any additional value to trade or business. Global systems are reshaping themselves, and we also know that we need to modernize the customs union, and this keeping things on hold may harm this process as well. 2021 expectations will be the main focus of our talk today, and we will be discussing the future scenarios for Turkey-EU relations. We wonder and would like to learn from one another whether this is sustainable, this keeping things on hold is sustainable, or has this always been the case? In other words, for Turkish business world, economic and commercial opportunities, technology transfer, and common manufacturing opportunities, visa liberties, and other dimensions related to direct contact have a higher expectation, which is further cooperation and full accession. Our stakeholders in the EU are benefiting from this process as well. We have bilateral trade with high volumes, and we have many joint projects with equitable sizes. However, we know that it is very much possible to draw a global picture as well. Personally speaking, 2021, along with all its transformations, will also be, in a way, a crossroad for the relationship between Turkey and EU. COVID-19 pandemic brought along an opportunity to stop and think and reflect what will happen in the future. When it comes to the business sector has always been utmost flexible and adaptive. So when we are at a crossroads to go back to the roots and original, we know that Turkish business world always plays a vital role. DEİK has always undertaken its important role. Green Deal and digitization are two important channels, two critical channels. These are the tools for strategic transformation. We wonder what the opinion and viewpoint of our speakers will be. Hopefully, Turkey will be included in the Green Deal and digitalization agenda of the EU, and this is going to further improve the relationship. We also attach great importance to the creation of positive agenda for bilateral integration. This is going to be quite motivating. Certainly, such a scenario will be for the benefit of the business world as well. 2021 will be a critical year both for Turkey and also for the EU. It's going to be a year of testing and trial. So rather than being stuck on hold and being in suspense, hopefully we will have more win-win situations. We as DEIK always attach importance to positive agenda and also establishing closer relationship. We know that this is being discussed quite often, so hopefully we will be discussing opportunities more and we will reach consensus more. That's our viewpoint. We would like to thank you all in advance for dedicating your time, and this is going to be a continuation of the timely events and meetings we have held in the past. Hopefully, we will be establishing a climate of positive dialogue between Turkey and EU at the very outset of 2021. We are celebrating the 21st anniversary of the Helsinki summit. Hopefully, this is going to be an initial step for further and extended dialogue. On behalf of DEİK, I would like to now leave the floor to our distinguished president, Mr. Nail Olpak. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Ms. Okyay, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished permanent representative of Turkey to the EU, Ambassador Mr. Bozay, and Mr. Monservisi, Special Advisor to EU Commissioner and former Ambassador, Mr. Selim Yenel, distinguished participants and panelists. I would like to wish you all healthy and a happy beginning to the 2021. This is one of the first events we are organizing for 2021. Hopefully, this new year will bring all the best and good beginnings, positive beginnings. Hopefully, within the framework of these beginnings, our main objective is to ensure that Turkey-EU relationship is reinforced, strengthened furthermore. From the business perspective, the closing was done last year by way of signing a special MOU, that is the free trade agreement for the agro products between the UK and Turkey. We would like to extend our thanks and gratitude to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as Ministry of Trade. Yes, it has been challenging times, and we as human beings have done our best to adapt to this new era. There are a couple of points I'd like to refer to when it comes to transformation, digitalization, and artificial intelligence. We have all witnessed these changes. As we discuss globalization, we also are discussing globalization. We always used to refer to scale economy and also being dependent on one single source. But then again, we have gone into a new era of diversifying sources. And when it comes to logistics, it used to be all about distance and proximity. But then again, these days we see that availability and eligibility also are extremely important. So the survivors of this era will be the ones that give confidence to the counterparts in the supply chain. So when it comes to Turkey-EU relationship, we are in an expectation to be on the winning side. So within this framework, I would like to draw your attention to a couple of points. Yes, indeed, EU, although UK is no longer a part of the EU, Turkey is still having the EU as the largest trade partner. But it's not only the economic domain. We see that when we are not involved in political developments, we are adversely affected as the Turkish business world, and we are not at the desired level. Negotiations are at a point to come to a halt, and from time to time, sanctions are being referred to, and this is indeed sad to hear. What is our objective? Our objective is to ensure political, economical, and commercial relationship to a higher degree. And we also are focusing on this positive agenda, and this suggestion brought up by the EU is extremely important for the business world. We always have been referring to the renewable of the customs union agreement. Hopefully, this is going to become clearer this year. We have together seen that
between Turkey and the EU. We have signed this recent MOU, and this is actually showing once again that the customs union agreement is way behind the free trade agreements that we have signed recently. Of course, these are not the only titles we focus on. In addition to digitization, we see that there are important headings such as Green Deal. We attach great importance to the Green Deal, and we are working on that. Hopefully, in March, we'll be sharing this project of ours focusing on Green Deal in March. One other point that we discuss quite often is about free circulation of goods. Yes, goods are to be freely circulated, but when it comes to the road transportation, there are some transition quotas, and these quotas are unfortunately not granted, and there is no free circulation. And this is, in a way, a bizarre situation. We are encountering the results of that together. I'm saying together because the cost that comes with this is not only undertaken by Turkey, the same thing applies to the EU side. We would like to once again emphasize that. Naturally, in addition to all these, when we take a look at the programs like research and development, innovation, Erasmus, as well as other programs, and renewable energy projects, investments in third countries, female entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence. All of these will be other topics, other extended domains we will be focusing on in 2021. So in this framework, with new hopes for the future, hopefully, we will continue decisively as DEİK with our business diplomacy. We will do our best to continue with this. Would like to greet you all cordially. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished President, for this extended perspective of yours, and thank you very much for the summary you have made about the activities of DEİK. So we now proceed with the panel discussion of today's webinar. As you know, we have distinguished participants and panelists with us. So without further ado, I'd like to invite them so that we start on with our panel. I will be moderating the panel discussion, and with the contribution and with the questions of our panelists, we will proceed, and then we'll have a Q&A session, I suppose. Now, I would like to kindly invite the distinguished ambassadors, distinguished president, when we have such valuable speakers and panelists with us, uh, we are extremely delighted. So let's start with the panel discussion if you like. Each panelist will be telling us about the experience they have had both in Brussels and in Turkey. Both ambassadors have witnessed the process for a very long time. Extremely important diplomats we have. Mr. Manservisi, no matter which professional organization or which NGO you contact, Ambassador Manservisi is one of the first names that comes to mind. He has left a very positive trace behind him. So whenever we are to add yet another brick to the wall, he never refuses, and he always joins when he is invited to activities such as this. So in your presence, I'd like to thank the distinguished ambassadors. EU process is extremely important for us, is extremely important for the business world. We know, and we personally know as industrialists, how important customs union is for Turkey. The anchor that we have set for full accession has transformed the whole business world. It has also multiplied and extended our foreign trade opportunities. Most of these earnings are associated with the membership perspective, and we owe this to the customs union as well. And our distinguished president also referred to that. These gains, of course, are bilateral. We have to underline that. Of course, EU has also benefited from the contribution Turkey made to the relationship. As I've said at the opening speech, when it comes to Turkey-EU relations, the picture is a little bit challenging. As the distinguished president mentioned, the impact of Brexit are still felt. COVID-19 and the economic situation in this largest integration project sometimes may turn the atmosphere into a negative or tense one. We also are waiting to see what kind of implications this will have on the transatlantic relationship. And in March, there is going to be a leaders summit between or within the EU leaders. We had the chance, I also personally had the chance to listen to our panelists previously. So there have been some unfair attitudes towards Turkey in this EU journey, and they have always been realistic. They have always been realistic in showing what deeds Turkey has undertaken as well. We know that this relationship is also giving us hope, and we need lots of hope these days. We're looking forward to hearing from our investors. And first of all, before we proceed with the Q&A session of our panel discussion, I would like to extend my wholehearted thanks to our president, Mr. Nail Olpak, for the great support he has given. And now we continue with our panel discussion. I'd like to start off with questions. The first question is for Mr. Manservisi. This is for you, distinguished ambassador. First of all, we'd like to start with you, distinguished ambassador Manservisi. Before we go into the details of Turkey-EU relations, we would like to refer to the topics for hot debate on the agenda of the EU. As we entered into the new year, Brexit became a reality. But then again, there are so many ambiguities. Digitalization, Green Deal are some ambitious targets. And although there is a pandemic, there are decisive steps taken for these two ambitions. On the other hand, Joe Biden has been elected as the new US president, and will this open a new page in the transatlantic relationship? That's a question asked by many. Distinguished ambassador, what kind of an EU is awaiting us in 2021? As far as we can see, internal agenda of the EU also has an impact on the relationship that the EU has with Turkey. So in the upcoming days, when it comes to the relationship between Turkey and EU, do you think it's possible to revive this relationship? And how would you evaluate this? The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, ambassadors and Minister Kaymachi, and thank you very much for inviting me to this important discussion. You know, because it is important for the subject. It is important also because it is at the beginning of this year, 2021, which, as it has been said, is particularly crucial in our relation. I would say is particularly crucial for what will happen in the world. And we have to situate, let's say, the special relations, sometimes difficult, of course, between the European Union and Turkey within this global picture in the making. And this is important in order to avoid too narrow, let's say, vision on both sides. I think this is the challenge that we have. So allow me to start with my best wishes for a very happy 2021 to all of us, I have to say, because in this year, you know, the recovery from the COVID pandemic is accelerating a certain number of, let's say, policies, or in any case will require to reshape a certain number of policies along what I would say three lines. The first one is the economic dominance. Let's say, what are the strategic sectors? As it has been said, I mean, basically green economy, which is not just renewable energies, green economy, and the digital artificial intelligence. These are the two around which, you know, the global economy will be reshaped and will be driven. The second element is the social component of all this. You know, there is the deep need of transformation of the skills, deep transformation of, let's say, the labor forces. And we have to start with addressing the very dramatic figures of unemployment, in particular of youth, which is very high, both in the European Union and in Turkey. And the third element, which is characterizing, let's say, this this period is the role of institutions, and in particular the interconnection between the private and the public. You know, everybody has spoken about the coming back of the state, you know, in all this, through recovery program, to fiscal spaces, to interventions to stabilize the situation. Well, this is likely something which will not be just short term, but which will be the third feature, I would like to say, characterizing this period. So the two economic strands, the social component, which is linked to that, and the role of the state. These three elements are intimately linked. In other terms, it will be difficult to set up a policy and a plan which is not linking the three of them together. Not only the state, but what the business and the private sector is doing. I mean, the reason why the role that private sector has in this reshaping and this definition of policy is particularly important. It's even more important than in the past. Now, in the light of this, there are several open questions, of course, that remain to be answered, and open let's say, options. I mean, on both sides, on the European Union and in Turkey, more visibly in Turkey, but now also very clear on the European Union side, there is very much this approach of strategic autonomy, of sovereignty, rebuilding some form of sovereignty or building a new form of sovereignty in this global world which is in the making and in reforming. I think that this is a crucial point, because if we look at that in a narrow sense, we can risk to clash. If we look at that in a wider sense, and this is particularly the one which is obliged, in my view, between the European Union and Turkey, this must inspire immediately, a definition of common strategic autonomy in our part of the world and in our part of interest that we have been building together during the last decades, and I would say much more than that. So therefore, this is the situation. Now, where we stand in terms of, let's say, the basic elements of the framework in which the relationship between the European Union and Turkey are framed. Now, I have to say that the present situation is to be defined at its very best a damage limitation situation. We are working on both sides basically in order not to clash. Allow me to be very frank in political terms. It's damage limitation. But I think this is also is paradoxically, because first, I don't think it is sustainable, but second, it is exactly the contrary of what we will need today, which is not damage limitation, but common plan building, say, because both the European Union and Turkey are now facing similar challenges, let's say, and they are very much linked by their economic relation, by their business culture, and by their proximity, and by common history. So therefore, but this is the situation. Now, why so? Well, let's say, from a European Union point of view, I think that, and I repeat something that I keep saying since a while, there's been for the last years, for a certain long period, a lack of long-term vision of what the European Union expects, wants, not from Turkey, but to do with Turkey. And I think that this is something which is heavily affecting today's, work of the European Union. We are surviving, basically, damage limitation. We know it is important, we know it is crucial, but we have not been able yet to, let's say, define a strategy to be built together with Turkey. But this is also true on the Turkish side, because in spite of all these deep relations in economic terms, in social terms, in cultural terms, in this moment, very often politics is dividing. And therefore, the vision and the mantra of the enlargement are extremely important for me, are the right framework, but there is to be seen as a sort of empty shell, as a sort of general statement not followed by facts. Now, this lack of long-term strategic vision from the European Union and from Turkey is certainly something to be considered. Now, enlargement is the buzzword. Enlargement is considered on both sides to be taken hostage, of this lack of long-term vision, while enlargement is suggesting, by definition, a long-term vision. So for me, it's more relevant than ever to keep enlargement and membership very high in our agenda, because it's the only way which is pushing both sides to develop a true strategic vision. Now, what are the strategic relations which are in the interest of both? This is, I think, what must be addressed in a pragmatic but also in a visionary way. I have to say that politics today should basically help and frame and create the most possible and conducive environment for the real actors of change to play in full. And the real actors are the societies and the business communities. I think that this is what we could expect from the political, let's say, environment today, and by political actors to facilitate. And I think that there are obvious things which can be high in the agenda on both sides. For example, on the European side, on the European Union side, to be much more serious on the visa liberalization. This is a political message per se. This is also, let's say, a way to, let's say, integrate more and to allow to get rid of a certain number of obstacles, starting from drivers, trucks, for example, but also arriving very quickly to citizens. On the Turkish side, I'd say, and it is obvious, the reforms which are ongoing with little results, allow me to say, in particular on the economic front and the judiciary front, must be accelerated. I mean, a small example, there are jurisdictions that we are respecting and we are pledged to obey to. For example, the European Court of Human Rights. Let's implement this decision, for example. This is not foreign intervention. These are decisions of jurisdiction that we both accept. This will facilitate, for example. On the other hand, I think that there are some serious, let's say, changes in the way in which we are, let's say, living our relation. We have a lot of dialogues in reality, but there are also a lot of dialogues of pure declaration. Why I think we should single out some specific dialogues on which we have to really build and explore paths together. For example, macroeconomic environment and stability. This is common. It is difficult to talk about the modernization and the reform of the customs union without embedding this into a sustainable common macroeconomic framework, in which we can talk about Europe, we can talk about the Turkish lira, we can talk about our macroeconomic policies. I think this is something which should be done in a way quite different from the past. And why? Because, second point, both the European Union and Turkey have defined a recovery plan. What in the European Union is called the EU Next Generation Recovery Plan, and what in Turkey is called in different way. But both are driven to rebuild, but in reality reshape at the same time. Well, I think that these two plans should be synchronized through an appropriate and dedicated dialogue, which is linked to the one on the macroeconomic stability and the monetary stability, because Turkey can take advantage for a while from a weak lira, but de facto is going also to work in a sort of dual currency economy, because its export can only be sustainable if they are linked to, let's say, a decent rate of exchange. So now I say, first, a different way to have dialogues which are not just to compare notes, but to build strategies together, to contribute together, to decide what to do and which kind of reform must be necessary in the green economy, in the green approach, in the digital and the artificial intelligence, and how our, let's say, labor forces, but societies at large, including our middle classes, which are at risk of poverty, and instability, must be a part of this. So therefore, to structure that in a different way and to identify concrete things. Now, my last point is the crucial role, and I keep repeating that because I really believe, I mean, from the time being, of course, I expect many things from politics, indeed. Dialogue, keep the environment, reduce tension, all this is well known. But I think there is a new protagonism for business. Business communities are those which are talking the language of truth, of true interests, not just of wishful thinking and sovereignty in abstract. We are talking about the fact that the customs union, which should be, let's say, the essence of this work, is not just a modernization. I mean, the modernization is the agreed language, but in reality, the customs union talks will be and should be the way in which we are reshaping together our economies, not only to help them in combining them better, because this is not the case anymore. The single market is being reformed through the reform of the value-added chain and the choices which are linked to that. So the customs union is a way to rebuild our economic integration, which means obviously to address immediately the issue of services, the issue of public procurement, the issue of agriculture, but not just as an addition to what it exists, but rather as the revelator of the necessity to change radically the approach. And on this, the governance of the customs union is not just to be fair in respect of Turkey and to involve Turkey when the European Union is taking decision about a new free trade area, but is to co-decide, because this is the way: common dialogue and common plans on macroeconomic, common plans in terms of recovery, common decisions in terms of how to articulate that within the customs union, which is another way to call a different way to organize the value chain and the supply chains between the European Union and Turkey. This is what I would suggest as a starting point and as a reference. Then in this, the new U.S. administration, the new relation with the United Kingdom is obviously extremely important on political level and economic level, certainly. I'm very pleased to see that United Kingdom and Turkey were able to strike immediately a deal in order to keep, at least partially, the same level of benefit, of mutual benefit, but between Turkey and United Kingdom. But this is again another damage limitation. Now, let's be clear. This is not to suffer from the exit of the United Kingdom from the single market and therefore from the customs union. Can bring much more, yes, indeed, but also in a smaller reality, which is the one of United Kingdom. So, in other terms, all this is absolutely important, but let's focus on what are the true interests of the two entities, the European Union on one side and Turkey on the other, which are already deeply integrated at the bottom, which now need to plan together how not only to be better integrated, but how to be, let's say, able to recover and to build better what is, our part in this new redefinition of the globalization. This is the point. Then other factors are extremely important, including the regional projection of Turkey, which is perfectly legitimate, by the way, and very often the European Union has not understood that to the end. But on the other hand, also the fact that Turkey should also, let's say, understand that there is not a sort of foreign interference. When Turkey is talking about the European Union, there is very often this language of, let's say, there is a foreign entity which is entering into our discussion. I'm sorry, when we are both embarked into what is a program of deep integration, which will eventually materialize into enlargement, the first instinct is to say, together, let's talk, let's see how to do it, because this is the only way to think together and also to identify our common interests together. So let's stop this feeling of being stranger. We are not stranger, because our economies are not stranger, because our societies are not stranger. Sometimes politics doesn't make things easier, but okay, let's allow business to take over for a while and to explain and to give and to prepare really what is a sort of action plan which can fill this positive agenda. I like the positive agenda up to a certain point. I think is a good expression to be positive. But I think that now the business should step in more assertively and say, these are the steps which are needed in order to build together a stronger resilience, a stronger economy, stronger competitiveness. Thank you very much.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz Sayın Büyükelçiman Servisi.
Distinguished Ambassador Manservisi, you have presented quite an extended perspective, and you have also given an assignment to the business world. Thank you for that. Now we continue with our permanent representative to the EU, Distinguished Ambassador, Mr. Bozay. In December, you were one of the figures that followed up the summit organized in December. Positive agenda and further agenda to be formed. All of these were discussed there, and positive agenda has been referred to by Distinguished Ambassador Manservisi as well. So the business world and DEİK set their eyes on Brussels, and then EU side started pointing out to March 2021. So how do you see the atmosphere? What was the expectation in December? What has the result been like? What should the picture be in March? And since you are the one of the first people to make an evaluation of this atmosphere, I'd like to leave it to you. I'd like to thank each and every one of you, distinguished Mr. Nail Olpak, distinguished Ms. Okyay. Thank you very much for bringing us together. It has been such a timely event, and I also would like to express my honor to be at a panel discussion with my senior colleague, distinguished ambassador, Mr. Manservisi. Sharing the screen together with you is an honor for me. So if I am to mention the summit in December, for time's sake, I'd like to refer to the summit. When it comes to the relationship between Turkey and the EU, I would say it's like the Pisa Tower. It's a bit tilted. So unfortunately, after the coup attempt in 2016, there has been a new agenda organized, and EU-Turkey relations seem to have been put in the deep freezer. This was related to the conditions in Turkey. However, the dynamics changed dramatically on the 15th of July 2019. There have been some restrictions brought on the sovereignty principles. Eastern Mediterranean and Cyprus have been on the agenda in December at the summit, and EU also was facing a contradiction. Our minister made some contacts, our ambassadors made some talks, and referred to this dilemma that EU was encountering. When it comes to Eastern Mediterranean and Cyprus issue, it's not only related to the relationship, it's going to actually have an impact on the strategic vision. So what does the EU suggest? In the post-COVID pandemic, the pandemic emerged undesired and unplanned, but then again, it revealed the jeopardy that the rule-based system was facing. But as for the connection of all of this, rules-based service is based on jurisdiction and state of law. So when you do not obey to the laws and regulations, you cause certain gaps. Argument a bit tilted. So when the approval of unity was done through Turkey, a peaceful resolution seems to have been postponed at the summit in December. So rational countries realized this at the summit in December and expressed that this is going to be contradicting with the EU norms, with the specific EU norm, which is about state of law. On the one hand, Turkey says that, okay, fine, there are some issues, let's sit down and discuss, Turkey says, let's have the negotiations. But the counterparty, another actor, says that, no, I won't have any talks, instead I will bring sanctions. So when this is the direction you go, then the EU's attempt to draw a strategic vision
goes sideways. So this has been postponed to the talks in March, and our expectation is that EU has a sound and a rational attitude. We have some dialogue, diplomatic dialogue, until the report is generated before March, and some circles in some circles are in an expectation to see some attitude for Turkey. So in order to continue with that, we continue with our negotiations. We'll see that in January. We will have at many frontiers, we will continue to have extended talks and contacts, and there will be bilateral delegations paying visits to one another. Our expectation is that as we have certain demands for a peaceful resolution, our demands will be heard, our requests will be heard. So through the diplomacy and through the talks, there will be a resolution. We will not have any concessions from our sovereignty, from our attitude, and diplomacy will be quite intense. As a report is to be generated in March, there will be references made to the future of Turkey-EU relations. When it comes to our relationship with the EU, this should not be focusing on politics and foreign policy only. There should be an emphasis for that. This means, as Mr. Manservisi mentioned, when we think about EU-Turkey relations, we should think about 83 million people in Turkey. Where would you like to see this population? At the beginning of the new millennium, strategically, EU realized that EU is lagging behind the US and China. And one of the areas where they lag behind was research and development and financial arrangements. They were looking for ways to improve this. And then came the crisis in 0708. And when this crisis was encountered, the council of that time started tackling with that financial crisis, which caused research and development stay in the background. The new commission that was assigned couldn't deal with this because there was also the refugee crisis they had to tackle with. And then the new commission established and the council in 2019 with the new president, a strategy was planned to be developed, and this strategy is called the Green Deal. If you ask why, this is actually mainly to bring a remedy to the position that the EU has between the US and China. According to the standards, first come, first serve was the basis. So with the new deal, some transformation steps have been taken. As Mr. Olpak mentioned, we have to come closer to this. Regarding the report to be generated in March, we as the private sector have to make sure that, of course, foreign policy is our domain as the ambassadors, as the foreign affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We will take care of that, but business world has to be a part of that. This is like a green industrial revolution. Talking about industrial revolution, there has been 2.0, 3.0, but this is yet another industrial revolution. The financial system of this era will also be encountering changes and transformation. And the EU, maybe because of the COVID, will be undertaking steps that it has never done before. For instance, Germany was one of the first countries to stand against lending money. However, in order to bring recovery to various sectors, steps have been taken by Germany. On the one hand, there are some difficulties, but then again, there are steps in order to bring a remedy to the difficulty encountered by sectors, because private sectors, small and medium-sized enterprises encountered the biggest amount of difficulty. And as Stefano mentioned,
a new budget is to be offered to these private sector players. So EU prepared a budget and 1.8 trillion dollars or 1.8 trillion euros of a budget, and 30% of that will be allocated to investments. And when you take a look at the details of these investments, most of it will go to energy projects. So after December, in the emerging atmosphere, we are following the political development. So what we have to do is financial institutions, private sector and public sector should come together and should reflect on this in order to have an equal ground. We have to enhance our economic capacity as Turkey, because aside from the political issues, EU will take a look at the position of Turkey and will consider Turkey's position. That's why Turkey should be at the same level as the EU. As uh, the term presidency of Germany is coming to an end, consensus has been reached to have a deal with China, but then again, this has been left to the next term. It is, in a way, a part of the bargain. All of these, actually, when we think about DEİK and the private sector, in order to ensure that we have sustainable development projects in the future, we have to consider the way and means of finding the finances. We have to look at what the EU does in order to find financing. And although the chapters are not actively open, although we do not have higher level talks, Turkey should be pulling herself to a certain level, and we should be able to prove that our adaptation, as our president, Mr. Olpak, mentioned, our position is very important, our orientation is very important. So the arrangements that we will be making in order to ensure that our accession process continues are vital. So what will be on our agenda? Manufacturing. All standards are changing. If I am to become a full, I mean, even if I want or not to have full membership, I should be realizing all of this. This is a sign that should be present on all the aluminium coating, on cement, on the doors that we produce, on all hazelnuts, Ordu hazelnut, and Kocaeli spare parts, and other products. I mean, we should be having this emblem on all the products that are produced. Otherwise, we won't be able to sell any of this. So we have to fulfill our obligations. Sustainable development. You will tell me then that there is money required for sustainable development. Ebru Dildar Edin, the chairperson of Sustainable Development Association of Turkey, she referred to the developments in the financial market. Total volume is $1.5 trillion, and in 2020, 500 billion US dollars will be offered to the market, she said. So a new framework has been opened. Our financial undersecretary made some reporting about this as well. So these windows are open, but they are not going to stay open for forever. We have to find ways to benefit from this open windows. There have to be projects. We have to develop projects. Not only the producers, but also the consumers will change their preferences. We really have to decipher these codes, whatever we are selling, whatever we are producing. Um, these have to be green. These have to be eco-friendly. Be it shoes, be it food. Even for a simple apple, you will be able to see where this specific apple, is produced on the label. As we do that, in order to be competitive at the same time, we have to follow all these norms, and we have to find ways to reduce the carbon footprint. So our products that have a smaller carbon footprint will emerge more than others. So with the Green Deal, with the loans, with the green bonds, we will have a new structure for the private sector, and we will be undertaking our own revolution. And all of these will not be that open-ended, I suppose. Of course, um, with the leadership of our leaders, we will be making sure that sovereignty of Turkey is always protected, that's for sure. But then again, the motivating power behind this will be the private sector. For instance, in the eastern part of Berlin, Germany, Tesla is establishing a large factory and is going into a huge competition. And Volkswagen is looking for ways to produce batteries that will be superior to the batteries of Tesla. So it has been quite appropriate that we focus on the manufacturing of electrical cars. So that has been quite timely. So logistic systems, transportation, transformation of buildings, we are quite strong in construction and also product development. All of these will be having the top priority. And the formula for that is that whatever we do, whatever we produce, whatever we manufacture should be recyclable, should be easy to repair, and easy to repeat. So let me repeat myself. With the leadership of our president, with the leadership of our minister, with the support of our expert specialists, we will continue doing our best. Be it the December summit, Eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus issues, putting all of these aside, we have to focus on the industrial revolution. With your permission, I'd like to conclude, and if you have any further questions, of course, I would like to answer them as well. I suppose we will be hearing from Mr. Yenal as well. Don't want to steal from his time. Thank you. Thank you very much, distinguished permanent representative. Just like Mr. Manservisi, you refer to the transformative role to be played by the private sector. In the second round, we may extend the topic. Thank you very much for your contribution. And now we continue with Mr. Yenal. For many years, for long years, you have been successful at the EU level, and now at your new position at Global Relations Forum, you are contributing to the policy making in Turkey. Regarding the sanctions policy of the EU, you wrote an article at the Global Relations Forum, and I read that article. Accession to the EU, visa liberties, you have referred to all these issues today. When we are in the middle of these discussions for sanctions, the climate is not conducive that much. So we discussed that already. So how do you see the upcoming period, full accession, EU process, main gains and challenges? Do you think we will be able to discuss this all over again? How important do you think to keep this on the agenda? Same question to you. Turkey EU positive agenda, realization of this positive agenda. What do you think that takes? And of course, we would like to kindly ask you to refer to the EU agenda and the role that the private sector in Turkey should undertake. With your new role as an NGO representative, would like to hear from you. Thank you very much. I also would like to thank distinguished President Mr. Olpak as well as you. Your questions sound to be quite simple. They are not simple at all. They are quite comprehensive. I'll do my best to answer them. Mr. Stefano and the distinguished permanent representative brought their vision, and they have
have been providing you visionary answers. Let me remind you the fact that we have completed the 25th anniversary of the customs union. No one expected this to continue that long, but it went on for 25 years. It has been criticized to a certain extent, but then again, it's up and running. But then again, there's a requirement to modernize it. Now, as Stefano mentioned, the main thing to do here is to ensure that there's prevention of deterioration. I had also mentioned that this relationship should not deteriorate. Unfortunately, this should never be our mission. Our mission should be to further improve our relationship rather than stop the deterioration. How can we improve the relationship? It's not that difficult. But then again, we have the political developments. There are three main things for us: of EU accession, customs union, and visa liberty. These are the key topics. Unfortunately, these are not currently discussed. They seem to have fallen from the agenda. In October and in December, there have been two summits and there have been some reference made to these. But then again, these references were in a different nature. As Mehmet Kemal mentioned, they were all within the framework of the Eastern Mediterranean. In the past, the EU was more into human rights and Turkey's proximity to the EU. These were not even on the agenda. Let me now touch upon them. Modernization of the customs union. Within this framework, we already drawn a roadmap in May 2015, nearly 6 years ago. That roadmap is now part of the past. Permanent representative quite appropriately referred to the Green Deal and said that this is where the future is. So as we are to modernize the customs union, we have to integrate this to this modernization because we had only the agribusiness and also services sector. So we are not ready for this modernization. If we are to modernize the customs union, we have to integrate this modernization process with digitalization and Green Deal. We have to make sure that customs union is handled at a technical level. And when we handle it at a technical level, we have to make sure that the roadmap that we had decided back in 2015 is handled again. We keep on saying we should modernize it, but then again, we should do it in a different fashion because times are gone. Other than that, if I am to refer to the positive agenda, this is mentioned for the second time. When I was in the office in 2011, positive agenda was again an item of the agenda. So what were we doing back then? Accession talks had come to a halt and we were looking for ways to revive it. And the chapters that were closed, we wanted to have some subcommittee meetings so that Turkey is prepared for the process. This positive agenda is revived again. But then again, when you read the details, what do you see? No reforms are being mentioned. Instead, the following is mentioned. If Turkey is in good condition when it comes to Eastern Mediterranean issue is like if Turkey is a good boy when it comes to Eastern Mediterranean issues, then we will start with the dialogue. So restarting the dialogue, do you think that's a price? I really find this bizarre. Dialogue should always be in place. And there's no mention of accession talks. And Turkey is approached as if Turkey is a third-party country. There is no reference made to accession or whatsoever. It's quite weak as a potential. Even if it's a weak potential, that perspective should always be in place. Otherwise, that accession or enlargement carrot won't work. Let me now come to the visa liberties. Unfortunately, we made some mistakes. Stefano will know this very well. We had the negotiations. 6 criteria among the 42 criteria have been left behind, and they have been left behind for the last 4.5 years. Some some activities have been done. The distinguished deputy minister made some efforts, but then again, there was no final will to resolve them. Let's say we resolved them. Let's say we fulfill those 6 elements. there are some elements which are subject to the permission of um, Cyprus. Let's say we even fulfill those. And then let's say the Commission gave a positive approval, then countries should give approval, and then the EU Parliament should approve this process. So the situation is, when compared with June 2016, is a totally different situation. Unfortunately, after that coup attempt, our relationship deteriorated. Perspective towards Turkey changed dramatically, and there have been some bilateral steps taken, and they were not for the favor of either of the parties. So even if those 6 criteria are fulfilled, I don't think visa liberty will be granted to Turkey. That's quite a weak possibility. So how can we improve this relationship? Well, Turkey has to take steps forward. That's for sure. In the area of justice, basic rights, uh, judiciary, there are things that Turkey has to fulfill. But as far as I understand, they will not be sufficient for the summit decisions. Turkey is expected to take some steps when it comes to Eastern Mediterranean. As Mehmet Kemal said, EU has to be more fair towards Turkey. Unfortunately, EU regulations necessitate that if you are a third party country, unfortunately, you are not able to benefit from that. UK saw this quite clearly in the Brexit talks. They've been approached as a third party country. Just imagine until recently, they were an EU country. When it comes to internal matters, for instance, things about Hungary and Poland, they are able to bring criticisms, but they are not to make criticisms about the wrongdoings of the members when it comes to foreign policy, like countries like Greece and Cyprus. There are some reactions made by Turkey towards the attitude of Greece and Cyprus, and this has repercussions within the EU. So if they would like to see Turkey having a different attitude, they should not be actually somehow provocating the situation. Distinguished ambassador mentioned that there will be dialogues and bilateral talks in January. Very glad to hear that, because the dialogue was not in place for a long time. This should be this should not be necessarily at the highest level only. Of course, having a talk with the president of Turkey is great, but there should be green lights lit on other levels as well. If we are not going to have any talks about accession, if uh, if there will be no more talks about EU integration, then why should these steps be taken? I'm not talking about basic rights or judiciary. That Turkey should be undertaking all these steps. Maybe Mr. Karamanci will mention that the monitoring group is not gathering for a long time. This is nothing we are accustomed to, and Turkey should go back to its former structure. In the past, within the EU structure, Turkey was very much closer to the EU, and as Mehmet Kemal mentioned, Turkey was doing her best in order to fulfill the regulations. If we are to continue with commercial activities, we have to do certain things. Turkey was against the modernization of the customs union, but then again, we saw a partnership negotiation between the EU and US. We, as Turkey, decided to modernize the customs union. So with the new Biden administration, maybe these talks will start again between Biden administration and the EU, and then our effort to renew and modernize customs union will be even more vital. There are some political hurdles, and I find these political hurdles inappropriate and wrong. Unfortunately, EU is making mistakes as well. Justice and basic rights, when it comes to the hurdles and challenges about basic rights and justice, these were on the focus in the past, but nowadays it's only the Eastern Mediterranean issue. Actually, this has nothing to do with one side only. So whatever steps will be taken by both sides, EU should also take steps as well. EU should invite Turkey in order to start the technical talks. The roadmap we developed back in the past will be handled again. The path for dialogue should be open. We had decided on some dialogues, for instance, political dialogue. Further than political dialogue, we decided to have dialogues on energy, economy, and also logistics. We used to have informal talks and informal meetings. Our foreign minister was invited to these informal talks in the past, but that's no longer the case. Why are you having such an attitude towards a country candidate to EU membership? I think both sides should take a step. And as the distinguished permanent representative mentioned, there will be further talks and dialogues this month. Hopefully, this will continue. And in March, I do not expect to see a significant challenge. As you also mentioned, EU does not have too many options for sanctions. Everything seems to be blocked. So if you ask me if EU is willing to take a step, it should be for a positive attitude, and EU-Turkey relations should be taken to a positive level. First positive step should come from the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, when we talk about positive agenda, bilateral positive steps should be taken, as you also suggested. Of course, starting things with good intentions is very important. At least as the business world, we have this desire. Hopefully, this will be the case from the political perspective. Now we continue with our second round, and I'd like to turn to the distinguished ambassador, Mr. Manservisi. The question for you is as follows. When it comes to Turkey-EU relations, I'd like to ask you, you have deep experience and you have a good understanding of Turkey as an ambassador. You are an expert in this and you know Turkey very well. And you also know about the reform pains of the EU. So from the EU perspective, advanced cooperation between Turkey and EU has always been supported by yourself. I know this personally. How can we proceed with this cooperation in light of the discussion we have just made? Do you think this is possible? And secondly, modernization of the customs union, it's an important headline, but then again, we are not at the desired stage yet. And on the other hand, of course, post-COVID periods will be a totally different period, and Turkey is willing to become a base for production for EU. Do you think this is possible? To what extent do you think is this possible? And in order to make it to that level, what should be the steps to be followed by Turkey? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'd say that I very much appreciate and agree with what both Ambassador Posai and Ambassador Yenel said, because they completed a bit the picture, which is very, very important. Well, first question. I think that more cooperation is possible and is necessary. I have to say that people should understand first that it is necessary. We are not talking about only, let's say, putting back on track something. Yes, indeed, there is putting back on track. But I think, and I believe that nobody is better placed than the business sector on this, that there is the necessity of cooperating. The union will and is reshaping itself from the single market to the foundations of its policies. The question that I regularly raise to the union is, are you doing that alone, inward looking only or mainly, or you are doing it with strategic visions with your strategic partners? I have to admit that so far the first part has been or is being implemented. The second one is still missing, or in any case, not so visibly linked to the first one. So therefore, from the European point of view, there is something missing, but will let's say, appear very quickly. You know, after all, the agreement on services reached with China in the very last hour or last year is a bit part of it. You know, it's a bit part of assertiveness, because it has been concluded in spite of many things, including an open call from United States new administration, maybe to hold on for a while. On the second, in order to use this, not only to have better access, but to starting redesigning some rules of the game in the relationship between China. But at the same time, you know, a deep reflection on what it means with our closest allies, call them neighbors or call them candidates, Balkans and Turkey. This has not been done yet. It will be done. Now, on the other side, on the Turkish side, equally, I have to say that I see a lot of short-termism, but I don't see enough, you know, putting ahead the necessity that Turkey has, not only to build an autonomous foreign policy, an autonomous place in the region in which Turkey lives under threat, by the way, for its security, other things often not understood within the European Union properly, at least. But, you know, where Turkey is willing to go in economic terms, where its industrial and economic basis is willing to go and compete in isolation, or it will build, let's say, its competitiveness through a stronger relation with the European Union. I think that also this question must be openly put on the table, and it is not openly put on the table in Turkey yet in these terms, because this will imply a certain number of choices which have also political implications, you know, in terms of stability, in terms of monetary policy, in terms of predictability, in terms of judiciary, in terms of many things, without going too far. But simply, these agendas are not disconnected. So, to the first question, my reply is, it is not only, let's say, useful to cooperate, but it is necessary for both if we really care about our future. You know, because this is what it is at stake. It's not just to improve a bit, it's just to think strategically on where we are going, together or not. And I think that stronger argument to go together. Now, second part, obviously not everything is possible at the same time. You know, there will be, let's say, graduation and steps. I think that we have to take the customs union, not just as a legal concept, but as an economic integration vehicle, because this is what it is at stake today. You know, it is, I mean, that's the reason why I say, obviously, we speak about modernization to cover other services, but the economy of the European Union, since the moment in which the customs union was concluded in the 90s, and the economy of Turkey has changed dramatically. You know, the added value component in services, the question of technology, the question of the supply chain in technology, you know, totally changed this kind of customs union, which was based on a sort of best proxy of a single market without tariff. And now the real issues, and Mehmet Bozai said that with this example very well, you know, it's not about the tariff, it's about standards, it's about policies, it's about research, it's about added value. And this is what is about the customs union talks today. The reason why I think that customs union should be taken for its own merit and going on in opening, enlarging, studying, but at the same time as the best vehicle in order to enlarge these talks. I repeat, in macroeconomic terms, it is unavoidable. I mean, the two blocks cannot run conflicting macroeconomic policies. They cannot run conflicting monetary policies. They cannot run autonomous or meaning separate, you know, research and added value in digital and in what it is the normative environment. And on this, when we talk about digital, we don't talk about technology only. We are talking about skills, education, movement, protection of data, which means rule of law. You know, All this, it is at stake. And all this, it is inconceivable for me that the European Union can believe to be competitive in the world and standing in respect of China, in respect of the United States, with its own, let's say, capacity alone without Turkey. But allow me to say, it is even truer that Turkey cannot believe 1 second to do the same and standing alone in front of China, in front of the United States, in front of whatever, with the same kind of challenges, because this will imply for China to make a choice. Instead of being linked to the European Union, it will be linked, let's say, in a subordinate way, but a much more different subordinate way, with China, or with, I don't know, Russia, or with, I don't know, United States. I don't now calling on Turkey to make a choice excluding other, but simply to be clear on where priorities are. And therefore, I think that not only, cooperation is necessary, but customs union should be taken in this wider context and then inspire precise, concrete dialogue. Macroeconomic implementation of the recovery, investments, where put money, and where the competitiveness of the supply chains is modified between the European Union single market and Turkey. This is the customs union today. So I would put this. I say visa liberalization can be more easily presented as a part of it rather than as a right per se. You know that how I'm attached to the full visa liberalization, to which I dedicated part of my energy, and I keep dedicating this. But I think that we have to maybe to change a bit and to look at that as something which is in essence linked to the full implementation of a different integration in economic terms between Turkey and the European Union. This is what I think could be done. Now, allow me to say to my friend Selim that, I, for once, I would be a bit less optimistic of what can happen in March, because following our relations from close since, let's say, more than 20 years, I have to say, in fairness, that the assertiveness that the European Union has reached, or it believes to have reached in these days with the recovery plan, the capacity of deciding a certain number of things, can also push the European Union to take some tough decision vis-à-vis partner which, rightly or not, it considers not affordable anymore. So therefore, I think that the period between now and March is absolutely crucial to consolidate the positive and the necessarily positive relations and elements which are linking us, and to do all what we can in order to downplay, to limit the damage that time politics is doing. Because I would say in March will not be, that easy, also because people are start thinking in terms which are, these relations are broken, we have just to, not to fix it forever, but just to fix in order to survive. Don't underestimate this moment in the European Union psychology. Thank you.
Evet, çok teşekkür ediyorum cevaplarınıza. Gerçekten
Thank you very much for your response. Customs Union, the new EU agenda, and national rules that it will bring along with itself, and as a result of the preferences, this should be handled. Thank you very much for this reminder. Hopefully, you will not be proven right, and as Mr. Yenel said, there will be more positive developments in March. Now, let me ask my question to our distinguished permanent representative, and the distinguished deputy minister has just joined us. We'd like to welcome him as well. We will give the floor to you as well. So, Mr. Bozay, let me turn to you. Let's discuss the customs union with you. We as the business world attach great importance to that, and we'd like to be more informed about this. So, should we expect any developments in 2021? Green Deal and Brexit are on the agenda. If Brexit had not become a reality, customs union, from the commercial perspective, would be bringing along serious commercial losses. However, for the modernization of the customs union, this Brexit, do you think this Brexit will bring some advantages? Green Deal, you referred to the Green Deal in detail. Let's remember that. And we will be facing this change that Green Deal will bring along. So customs union modernization and Green Deal, you have merged the two. So you also said that business world has to be a part of this testing. So when it comes to the future of the customs union, how do you see the future of the customs union in this context? Let me give you the floor now for a quick answer. Thank you very much. I also would like to greet the distinguished Deputy Minister. First of all, as Mr. Yenel mentioned, customs union should be handled in light of the recent development. And you also referred to the MOU signed with the UK. We were in continuous communication with Mr. Kaymakçı, and he was in contact with the ambassador of Turkey in London. So this diplomatic approach has been quite successful. We also had talks with the EU representatives, and we were always in coordination. And we have come up with an MOU which gives confidence, and it's beneficial both for the diplomatic relationship and also for the commercial circles. I would like to refer to the words uttered by a German politician. UK signed this agreement with the EU, but then again, this is way behind the customs union agreement. So that there are bottlenecks, fine, but then again, these bottlenecks would always be in place. So distinguished Deputy Minister knows this very closely. Alternatives of customs union. When the scenario is presented, scenario for alternative customs union agreements, I don't find this realistic. But then again, at the subcommittees, even if there are bottlenecks regarding the customs union, for instance, agriculture, let's handle agriculture. After COVID, EU generated a report saying that in post-COVID process, there will be a recovery, but will it be a slow recovery or will it be a green recovery? For instance, we established an undersecretariat for agriculture, agricultural activities, and we have an R&D and innovation team working with the undersecretariat. Quite a new development. And we also have a Green Deal unit. So the clusters are changing. Among the clusters, we have to see our relationship with the customs union. As Selim Bey mentioned, for 25 long years, we have been talking about the gaps of the customs union, but customs union gave us many reflected. For instance, we were able to put some items in the free trade agreement we had with many countries. And as a strategic vision, where does the EU see Turkey, as Mr. Manservisi mentioned? So where will this country of 83 million people be? What will be the day after? So all of this has to be considered. All of this has to be calculated as well. With the EU presidency reporting to the deputy minister, we are working quite hard. I don't have much to add to what Mr. Yenel said, but within the framework of Green Deal, we have to work on a new roadmap, and this should be contributing to the positive agenda. At the summit in October, this was mentioned.
And at the summit in December, this was not openly stated, but then again, for the next 3 months, we will be focusing on that European Union strategy and Turkey's attitude. I mean, this is not granted to Turkey as a blessing. It's also a gain of the EU as well. We have One Belt, One Road with China. We have UK MOU, and we have supply chain activities. So this customs union is not only for the benefit of Turkey, it is also for the benefit of the EU. It should not be presented as one-sided benefit. Of course, technical legislation has to be worked on in order to be in line with the competitive principles, and our roadmaps have always been in line with that. And I don't want to take any further time of yours since the deputy minister is here as well, so would like to leave it to you. Thank you very much, distinguished permanent representative. In the first part, we discussed the importance of the Green Deal and how this should be handled. You referred to the details as well as Mr. Yener. We made note of that. So, distinguished Ambassador Yenel, let's conclude this panel discussion with you, and then I suppose both Mr. Kaymakçı and Mr. Olpak will take the floor. Let's finish this, let's conclude this panel discussion with an extended view. When we consider Turkey-EU relations, we should see this as a Western coalition, and is most probably President Biden will pay a visit to the EU, and there will be when you draw a picture of the EU and EU's relationship with the US and also the position of Global Relations Forum, I'm sure you also have drawn this picture as GRF as well. So Turkey-EU relations, Turkey-US relations. We have seen some implications of that in December, but with the regional and global dynamics, how do you see these relations? And if there is more proximity between the EU and US, how will this affect Turkey-EU relationship as well? Would like to ask for a general evaluation. Thank you. Well, of course, recently we always are focusing on short-term results, but we should actually focus on the next 5 years, 10 years. So your question is quite appropriate. It's not only us, but it is also the EU who should also have a long-term perspective. So before I come to the response to your question, I'd like to answer Mr. Manservisi. As far as I understand, and as the permanent representative mentioned, there will be more frequent dialogues, but this should not be seen as a palliative solution. It should be long-term. If nothing much comes in March, be it positive or negative, then this won't go any further. This relationship won't go any further. I don't know how this will be, but if there's ever a sanction imposed on Turkey, then Turkey will be pushed aside. So EU should also make its decision. Where do they see Turkey in the next 5 to 10 years period? We have for a very long time seen ourselves as a part of the Western world, but unfortunately in recent years we started referring to the West and Turkey, but we seem to forget that we are a member of the NATO. We are a part of the transatlantic pact. Okay, we have tensions with the EU, we have tensions from time to time with the US, but we should put these aside. We should forget about these tensions. But then again, this is never one-sided. Turkey is undertaking this reactionary policy. EU and US should understand that. I insist on this. I suppose I strongly believe that we are an integrated part of the Western world. In recent years, we have seen that being a part of other parts, other geographies in the world doesn't bring much to Turkey. Turkey's place is within the West. We should be close to the West. We should be a part of the West. This is not a weakness, by the way. We should not see this as a content, or we should not see this as a concession. Because what is our goal? Our goal, our objective is, as Mustafa Kemal Atatürk once mentioned, to be a part of the developed countries in the West. This has always been seen as such. We should not take it from the negative perspective. Being a part of the West is nothing negative. We may have challenges with the West. Well, there are challenges within the EU as well. I mean, you see so many contradictions. I mean, just take a look at the UK. They left the EU. Germany and France, they are the flagships of the EU, but problems never come to an end. But still, against all odds, we should have a common consensus. That's what the EU is doing. Turkey will have better cooperation with the Biden administration as well. Because when it comes to the Trump administration, it was on a personal level. The same rule applies to the relationship with Russia. When you take a look at the topics covered by international relations, we are never on the same page. We are always at a different angle. But still, we continue with our relationship. So Turkey should not close the dialogue paths and routes for dialogue. And of course, the counterparty should have a positive attitude as well. I keep on using the word dialogue so often. Maybe it's because I don't see it that often in place. When I say we should establish a dialogue, we should talk, we should communicate, we should walk into the same direction. Having a talk or dialogue over the telephone is fine, but we should walk on the same path. We should take a step towards the same direction. Turkey used to do that in the past with the EU. Turkey should go back to that. I see some challenges. I'm sure you also see it. Everyone sees that. We should actually take it back to the original settings. And we should not take it from the negative perspective. Since we are talking about the positive agenda, Turkey should establish a positive agenda for herself as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In the upcoming days, of course, EU, US coming together and establishing closer dialogue will bring a new format to Turkey as well. We have concluded 2 rounds, and I'm sure that the distinguished deputy minister will take the floor. So many questions are posed, but unfortunately we don't have time to answer them. The only thing is there's something which is not mentioned, and Manservisi referred to that. So I'd like to ask that question, and then I will pass it to Mr. Kaymakçı. It's about the Western Balkans. Western Balkan states investment plan, including Turkey in this plan. What do you think about that? Because this is quite important, and at the business councils, we are quite active at DEİK. So that's quite an important geography for Turkey. We have deep relations, especially when we also think of Greece as well. That's also a part of the same geography. Mr. Manservisi mentioned that. So I would like to ask for your opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Balkanlarla ilgili en güzel çalışmayı
Actually, regarding the Western Balkans, you have done the best project with the leadership of Mr. Olpak, Mr. Bayram Akgül, and the EBRD came together and undertook a very important project. That's such an important project. I underlined so many parts of it because I also personally worked in that geography. EBRD experts have quite positive views on Western Balkans. With our president, Mr. Erdogan, we paid visits to the region during my undersecretary's position, and he brought this vision of a peace path. This never came to people's mind, and Belgrade and the path to be established. For instance, when I was in Serbia, I had paid a visit to Vojvodina region, and I only saw
fences, and I asked what this is, and they said this belongs to a French company, this belongs to a German company, and there was no space left for Turkish companies. Our companies would be producing cooling and heating systems for companies like Volkswagen and BMW and some other countries. So we always have this entrepreneurship. So the route we're following in the Balkan states is quite appropriate. And there was a DEİK conference held in Serbia, and that's how the gates were opened. And the EU is going to allocate a significant amount of money for that. And Northern Macedonia and Albania will not have an easy access because they will be having some internal consolidation. They will have to wait for the decision. So it is quite at the right time to be there. And Russian and China are presented as a competitive to the EU. So we have to actually be a part of the joint projects in order to be a part of this process. So the report that you generated is extremely important. Its connection to the Mediterranean is very important. A train goes through Montenegro. It goes all the way to Hungary. Railroads bit we have to think. And from the EU, from IPA, we received some projects. Halkalı Kapıkule railroad project was the most important. And when the EU gave me a call after the pandemic broke, they gave me a call to ask how a commission is to be established. We are a part of the Balkan states. We are a part of the European continent. For instance, when I was an ambassador in Belgrade, from Tekirdağ, from Edirne, some people came to make investments and said that Ankara is so far away, even further than Belgrade. So it's not only the supply chain that we should bring, we should also carry our value chains. For instance, agrobusiness. For instance, there are some projects undertaken in Macedonia. We have taken our large companies there for dried fruit business and fruit juices. We are quite good in this sector. Serbia, Montenegro, and some other countries in the region. When we keep them separate, the yield that you have isn't sufficient. But if you establish an integrated facility for these three countries, then you will be quite successful addressing the whole need. So my opinion is that route to the Balkan states or route to the EU goes through the Balkan states. And I know about the approach of Mr. Olpak, distinguished president. So it takes some dedication, it takes some commitment, and of course our state should also be supporting this process. Halkbank and Ziraat Bank should also be supported, and now is the time for our investors to sell there. 2 years later, they won't have a chance to do that. And so let's make sure that our friendly states there benefit from these investments as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Indeed, these are the opening gateway to the EU for us. We'd like to thank our private sector as well, and we also would like to thank our president, Mr. Olpak, for taking this initiative. As you also suggested, this is quite important. Okay, without further ado, we have already gone beyond our time. I will leave it to Mr. Olpak for the closing round. We held a JETCO meeting in the Balkan states, and we also signed a protocol with our Ministry of Trade. It was the JETCO held there, and Balkan states have been discussed. And I see Mr. Manservisi here as well. I know that there are many opportunities to emerge there. One of the outcomes was this as a result of the JETCO. I think this has been quite a realistic panel discussion, and I would like to express my gratitude to the distinguished panelists for their sincere, for their sincere insights and sincere perspective. Common perspective has been undertaken. I am repeating this for you, distinguished Deputy Minister. Positive create. We have to fill in the content of this positive agenda, and customs union has to be modernized. The former format is no longer serving us. The whole world is changing and transforming. So R&D policies, innovation policies have to be handled again. Turkey's place is in the West, and we have to be at a decision-making position. And this is all a part of the deepening of the customs union. That context has to be handled again. We emphasize that as well. And of course, we should have a long-term vision. We have to take a look at the next 5 to 10 years. We have to, as Mr. Manservisi also mentioned, Turkey also should continue with the reform activities in various domains, energy, etc. Turkey should be invited to the conferences and meetings because we have deeper relationship, Western Balkans, be it Western Balkans and be it common future of the region. So it's not possible to leave Turkey outside this loop. And of course, within this geography, we should deepen the relationship as both sides, as EU and Turkey. And both parties should be drawing conclusions and sitting down at the table with good intentions. And of course, as long as Turkey's sovereignty is respected, Turkey should keep her good intentions and should keep the dialogue. I'd like to thank each and every one of you. This is the end of my moderation for the panel discussion. I would like to now leave it to the distinguished president, Mr. Nail Olpak.
Thank you very much, Zeynep Hanım. Distinguished Minister, welcome. I don't know how correct it is to welcome you. It's just welcoming you, but then again, you are the host of this. We most of the time come together with the commercial attaches, but especially in this pandemic process, you have never left us alone. We always are accompanied by an ambassador and always by a commercial attaché. And in 2 weeks' time, we will be discussing the Asian outreach with two ministers, Minister of Commerce and Minister of Trade and Minister of Foreign Affairs. I'm not going to take any further time of yours. We have just entered into a new era, a new year. We would like to have a positive attitude. When we are asked questions about the economy, I always say that economy, half of the economy is made of expectations and half of the economy is made of figures and numbers. So when it comes to Turkey-EU relationship, the thing is that there are certain things that we have to consider, and there are certain things that the EU has to consider. This has a history of 60 years, nearly the same age as me. I mean, in a couple of years, I will be 60 as well. So we are talking about 3 generations. Let me categorize 3 generations. Europe, for my father, was a continent where they went there for work, for business. For me, for my generation, it meant customs union, doing more business, being partners with the EU. And for my children, it means not much, unfortunately. I'm an engineer by background. I always have an analytical look, but from the sociological perspective, we have to evaluate this and we have to somehow come up with a way to resolve this issue. Because after a while, we won't be here. I mean, Zeynep Hanım, Miss Okyay is going to turn it over to her son, and we will also do the same. So our next generations should continue to be a part of that. So the wrongdoings have to be handled with care. Ms. Okyay made a summary for you, so I'd like to leave it to you.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much,
Başkanım Nail Bey, Zeynep Hanım,
Mr. Olpak, Ms. Okyay,
değerli büyükelçimiz,
distinguished
Selim Bey,
ambassadors,
sevgili
Mr. Yenal,
değerli
dear
katılımcıları
Stefano,
hepinizi Ankara'dan
distinguished
selamlıyorum.
participants, would like to
Bana
greet you
aslında
all cordially from
katılmadan önceki bölümde
Ankara.
arkadaşlarım özetledi.
Actually, I read
Son
a
yarım
summary
saat
of the
dinliyorum.
part that I
Bana
missed
çok net bir
at
soru
the beginning, and
sorulmadan
I've been with
isterseniz
you for the last
kısaca
half an hour.
duyduğum
I have not been asked any direct questions, but then
açıklamalarla
again,
ilgili
I
yorum
would
yapmak istedim.
like
Bir
to
de
make some
önümüzdeki dönem
comments,
neler
and I
olabilir
would
ya da
like to
benim
tell you a
gözümde
little bit about the
geçenler neler,
probable developments
onları
for the
sizle
future
paylaşmak
and what
istiyorum.
I
Birincisi
hope
Stefan
and
Bey
wish that the developments will be like.
biz
First of all,
batıyız
Mr.
dedi.
Yenal said that we
Batıda
are a part of
Batı'nın
the West. We should
batıya
be
yakın.
we should
Ben
be
şunu
close
söylüyorum.
to the
Batı'nın
West.
merkezinde olmak
I
zorundayız.
always say this: we
Yani
have to be at the very
dışişten
heart of
yani
the West for our
birisini hoş
sovereignty
görünmek
and
veya
for
böyle
our
bir şey kısmına
interests.
değil ama
It's not for
gerçekten
the
de
sake of
Türkiye'nin
anyone else, for the
acil
sake of
çıkarları
Turkey,
için
for the
kendi
ultimate
tutamımızı, kendi
benefits and
coğrafyamızı
interests of Turkey. We should
büyük
be at
ölçüde
the
yönetir
center
hale
of the
gelmiş
West.
bir Avrupa Birliği'nin
We have
içinde olmama lüksü
to.
yok Türkiye'nin.
We don't have the luxury to be outside the EU. And of course, EU is not awaiting with full arms, opened, extended arms. I actually repeat this quite often. I see this relationship as an anchor credibility dilemma. EU has certain reservations, and these may be rightful to a certain extent. But then again, we also have an attitude, unfortunately, that prevents us to undertake the necessary policies and steps. Turkey made it to a certain extent at times. Since 1959, we are in a relationship with the European community, but then again, if when we would like to become a full member to the EU, and when we undertake this with a certain strategy, Stefano mentioned this, emphasized this, be it from the Turkey's perspective and EU's perspective, we need to have stronger vision and stronger strategy. I think this is how we can break this vicious circle. You will recall that back in 1999, take it all the way to 2009. Between 1999 and 2009, if you ask me, this was the most sparkling, shiny times for Turkey. Significant reforms were undertaken back then during that decade. That's how Turkey was able to multiply her national income by 3 times, both in the East and the West. Turkey became more prominent, and with the steps taken during that term, Turkey became an inspirational center for democracy. So we should go back to those times. This is what we have to do so that we can break this vicious circle. When it comes to the EU membership, there are uncertainties. Are we getting away from the EU, or are we pushing? Are we being pushed away from the EU? Being someone in the field, don't believe that Turkey is actually putting herself away from the EU. We are being pushed away at certain times, but then again, we should consider our interests. Stefano mentioned that the most important point here is that full membership perspective of Turkey, full accession should be strengthened. This is key. At this time, Turkey should not be pushed away from full membership. This should not be diluted. This dilution actually causes this. It's not going to be overnight. Turkey will become a member to the EU when she fulfills all the obligations, but it's not going to be the same Turkey. It's not going to be the same country. Everyone should be able to see that. The distinguished ambassador mentioned that a politician from CDU, who is sought to replace Merkel, thought about an alternative strategic partnership or partnership, etc. I mean, we have heard so many concepts. We're not against this either. But of course, if they're telling us to give up on full membership and instead establish a special partnership, then we are against this, because full accession is our ultimate objective, and this is for the benefit, for the interest of Turkey. This is going to help us protect, preserve our sovereignty. And within the EU, full membership is the best formula for the EU as well. Maybe we are using only 20% of our potential. Mr. Olpak said this, the MOU and the free trade agreement we signed with the UK is beyond the customs union agreement, although it doesn't have a common customs tariff. My point is that this is going to offer us the best potential and potential to be utilized in the best manner possible. So all steps that will weaken Turkey's strategy to become full members doesn't serve for any purpose. Okay, let's open the path for visa liberty. Let's cooperate when it comes to energy and anti-terrorism. We're not against any of this, as long as they are not presented as an alternative, as long as we are not offered an asymmetrical relationship. Our main objective should always be full membership. We had entered into 2020 with a positive agenda. Unfortunately, along with the breakout of the pandemic, and unfortunately because of the refugee crisis, we were never able to have the momentum that we planned to have. The instruments inappropriately referring to sanctions, etc. And this is not for the interest of the EU either. Even if these steps harm Turkey, if these steps were to serve for the benefit of the EU, then I would say fine. But then again, these steps taken by the EU are not for the benefit of the EU, just for the sake of national interests and maximalist expectations of a couple of countries. They have taken these steps, and they have placed Turkey on the reverse side. Hopefully, this meaningless approach will be abandoned. First of all, I'd like to refer to the thing to do, reforms. Reforms are the number one priority, rules and regulations and justice. This actually, we see that EU's perspective towards Turkey is changing, especially after 2016. Turkey is seen as a transactional country. I mean, this is the perspective of the EU. The EU used to be more critical. These days, even if there are criticisms brought, there is no need felt to follow up. Probably because Turkey's future is not seen as a part of the EU, but we have to revive this by undertaking our reforms. We have adopted the reform strategy, and 3 packages have passed the parliament.
AB'ye çalışanlar bu reformların daha dişe dokunur, daha
We
görünür.
would like to make sure that these reforms are more concrete, with more concrete packages. Hopefully, 2021, as the distinguished president of the Republic mentioned, will be a year of reforms. By the way, we as the EU presidency see 2021-2023 are planning to open and close 35 chapters. We have worked on this. And for EU accession, a national action plan is prepared by ourselves. We will disclose that in the upcoming days. And we are planning to make amendments in nearly 200 laws and in the second legislation as well. And this has reference to many laws. So this is going to be coordinated by the EU presidency, but institutions in Turkey will be making commitments voluntarily, and this is going to certainly open the path. and undertake the changes. And our Ministry of Justice is going to disclose the new action plan for human rights. And this action plan will bring concrete results, hopefully, especially when it comes to state of law, independence of the judiciary, and human rights. Criticisms brought to Turkey in all these domains will thus be eliminated. These are very important. These are crucial. These are significant things for Turkey, especially this is going to contribute to the perception. The biggest expectation that we have in the upcoming days is that talks are started between Turkey and Greece, because tension between Turkey and Greece has been on the forefront. So if we can take some joy, we will be able to contribute to Turkey supports this policy. Political in two-state formula is brought up to the agenda in recent times. So a solution, a strong with new parameters, we cannot come up with a solution. Hopefully, with new parameters, talks will start again. And anyway, we, as the guaranteeing states, Turkey, Greece, and the UK, will be a part of that. And two parties on the island, Northern Cyprus, Turkish resources. And hopefully this is going to give trust to all parties on the island. So with the Turkish community and with the Greek community on the island, there will be positive environment, and maybe this will contribute to Turkey-EU relations as well. President of the Republic also suggested that a South and Eastern Mediterranean conference is held. There are different parties in Eastern Mediterranean, be it the gas or petrol drilled. Who will use this, to what extent, who needs what extent, and who will handle, who will do the transportation. This is important, and we cannot undertake a gas project with the effort of a couple of countries. And EU has taken a recent decision and said that gas pipeline and exploration projects of this extent will not be supported. Most probably, the consumers of this gas in Eastern Mediterranean will be either Turkey or other European countries in the western part of Turkey. So hopefully this conference is held in the upcoming days, and hopefully the Turkish community, Turkish Cypriots are also represented, and advancement is realized. In addition to the tension we had between Turkey and Greece and Southern Cyprus, in addition to that, tension has risen between Turkey and France. We don't have any issues with France. The basic problem is in Syria, in Libya, in the Caucasian area, and to a certain extent in the Eastern Mediterranean. France and EU, I mean, this is not actually in the interest of France and in the interest of the EU, and their policy is not coinciding with our policy. So the disappointment that France has is reflected onto the EU relations. This is not healthy. This is not sound. I suppose this has already been seen. And there are some anti-Islamist discourses in France, and that also contributed to the tension. We never showed reaction towards France. criticism is made about Turkey's policies and Turkey's leaders. For the last 1.5 months period, with the efforts of the ministers of foreign affairs and with the efforts of the diplomats, some steps have been taken from both sides. Hopefully, in the upcoming term, the relationship between Turkey and France will develop, will improve further on, so that bilateral relationship between the two countries will improve and will contribute to Turkey-EU relationship. I also would like to refer to the dialogue channels. Selim Bey mentioned this as well. It was actually the EU that cut the dialogue. This was actually an official decision taken after the 15th of July 2016. This was a mechanism in place since 1964, but one-sidedly EU decided to suspend this. So if you don't if you don't enter into dialogue with Turkey, this is where you end up. If you refer to sanctions, this is where we end up. This is not for the benefit of everyone, not for the benefit of anyone. Hopefully, everyone will reflect on this process, and in the upcoming future, we will have more visionary attitudes. As Stefano mentioned, we should have a long-term vision in our understanding so that this relationship recovers. I bear hope for the future. It may not be at the speed, at the rate that we desire, but still, this should be put back on its track. Personally speaking, I have a positive perspective for 2021. This is what both parties need. Keeping things in suspense is not for the benefit of anyone. It is not for the benefit of Turkey, especially. Ambiguity is no good. So we should get away from this ambiguity. Step by step, we should proceed. And the method for that could be through the starting of the talks for the modernization of the customs union agreement, or maybe steps to be taken for the visa liberty. This is going to contribute to the motivation in Turkey for undertaking reforms. Believe me, when I come together with 4 or 5 ministers for the remaining 5 criteria, they turn to me and ask, Faruk Bey, are you guaranteeing that the visa is going to be lifted? I say, even if I can't guarantee that, I mean, we should first undertake our reforms and then we should make requests from the EU. But the EU should also have a visionary approach as well. Especially bilateral relationship should not be somehow abused, because this does not contribute to our relationship with Greece nor to our relationship with Southern Cyprus. The EU should also be giving the right messages to its members as well. Okay, we can understand solidarity among members to a certain extent, but it should not be in a blind manner. The right for veto is actually putting a hurdle, is presenting a hurdle as well. But just imagine, a couple of countries should not have the luxury to veto certain things. This should not be the case. If EU is willing to become a global actor, some other decision-making mechanisms should be developed. As the distinguished mentioned, Future of Europe conference, all candidate countries should be invited to the conference as well. And of course, no doubt, Turkey is going to contribute to this more than others. Would like to conclude here. If there are questions, I am ready to answer them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sayın Başkanım, siz mi şey yapıyorsunuz, ne yapıyoruz bilmiyorum ama.
Should we conclude?
Ya çok teşekkür ederiz Sayın.
Okay. Thank you very much, distinguished Deputy Minister. You made a realistic evaluation of the whole situation. Hopefully, it is going to improve, as you suggested. If we have time, we may receive them. If you ask your questions through the chat box, we may get those questions, and then we will conclude our meeting.
Süremiz aslında 2 saatti ama bir 6 dakika geçtik galiba. Ama olsun, yani bence kıymetli konuşmacılar ve önemli
We
bir
have
konu.
gone beyond our time. It was planned for a shorter program, but then again, if there are questions, you're most welcome to write them through the chat box. I asked most of the questions, combining them. So if there are questions, we may receive them. I see none. Okay, distinguished President, Mr. Olpak, the floor is yours for the closing remarks. Thank you very much for your evaluation, distinguished Minister. We were here with 3 esteemed ambassadors. We had a great panel discussion. We mentioned our objectives, we mentioned our targets, and also strategy. We never give up. We have to put forward our objective. Let me conclude with the following expression. We are the business world. We have to have even a more positive attitude, more than others. It doesn't mean drawing a rosy picture, but then again, we should have high expectations, because otherwise investments are made accordingly, borrowing is made accordingly. We always keep our expectations on a positive level. We believe in this good relation. We believe in our future. Thank you very much for your participation, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sağ olun. Görüşmek üzere.